All right, good morning. The Committee of the Whole has reconvened. We are now on Speaker Therese Terlahi's amendment. It's SB 55 TMT L22, page 8.
Mr. Chairman, prior to going to that, I'd like to request to go to motions, and the motion would be to rise from the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the override of Bill 11, notwithstanding the Governor's veto.
The motion is out of order. We're on the question of...
I would like a
Speaker
ruling
Terlahi's.
for the parliamentarian in terms of a member of this body making a motion at any time on the floor, and I'd like legal counsel to decide whether or not my motion is out of order.
Sure. Okay, just to clarify, legal clarified the motion was out of order.
Stand by, Mr. Chairman, because I got the clarification from legal that I can make a notwithstanding, and that's all I needed to do at any time. So at this time, notwithstanding the House rules, I request that we go to motions for the purposes to rise from the Committee of the Whole to consider an override on the Governor's veto of Bill 1136.
Okay, there's been a motion notwithstanding the House rules. Is there an objection to the motion?
Mr. Chair, I do object to this motion. I'm not objecting for us to address the bill, the override of the bill, but I do object because of the time sensitivity of addressing the budget bill right now. We are only on page 8 of a couple hundred pages here, almost 200 pages of a budget. We have 6 days to complete, and so I'd like to continue with what we're doing right now, and if we can address that at a later time.
Okay, there's been an objection to the motion.
Mr. Chairman, we spent 2 days in recess to review 15 amendments. I certainly think that we can move forward and still pass the budget. This should not take more than an hour. We were supposed to come back here 9 a.m. sharp. It's 10 o'clock or after, and we've just convened. So I think that, it's the will of this body to move as quickly or as slowly as it wants to. I also think we should take that 15 minutes down to 5 minutes. If a person's moving an amendment, they should know what they're doing. We should be able to finish this budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is that also a secondary motion to reduce the time to 5 minutes?
I can bifurcate it and make the motion later on, but at this point, my motion stands as is.
Okay, there's a motion. All those in favor of the motion, there's an objection to the motion. All those in favor signify by raising your hands.
Roll call, Mr. Chair,
Senator
and call the
Nelson, you are
House.
recognized.
Mr. Chair, can you please just restate the motion? Thank you.
Sure, please restate the motion one more time.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is, notwithstanding the House rules, we suspend discussion on the budget, rise from the Committee of the Whole for the sole purpose of considering the override of Bill 1136, notwithstanding the Governor's veto. I call for a roll call, and I call the House, except for those, of course, who would be duly excused for their reasons.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
Senator Nelson, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, just to get clarification, is this a roll call, or is this a call of the House? Or is this a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole? Or is it all three? So how do you have a roll call and a call of the House at the same time?
Yes, that's a good point. We're going to have to take the motions separately. So let's start. Your first motion is notwithstanding to rise from the Committee of the Whole, right?
That's correct, but for the purposes of voting, Mr. Chairman,
Roll
I
call for
believe
voting on that motion. Okay.
That's correct. And I'd like to call the House for any member that's not here that's not excused, so that we have everybody vote.
Okay, so you have a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, notwithstanding the House rules. You also have 3 roll calls, so that's, we can do the roll call. So we're going to go ahead and call for the vote now. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
The rise out of the Committee of the Whole with the sole purpose of addressing the
yes,
veto.
understood. I was
Okay,
just
thank you.
shortening. So we're going to go ahead and call for the vote now. All those in favor of the motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, signify. Okay, and then you have the motion for the call of the House, right?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, can you just...
Are there any objections to the motion for the call of the House?
Mr. Chair, can we just take a step back and find out what order are we doing this?
Yeah, I
there's-
just clarified. So now that there has been a motion for notwithstanding to rise out of the Committee of the Whole, but there's also a call for call the House, right? Roll call, they had 3 already, so roll call is good, but pertaining to the question of the call of the House, that pertains to this first motion, so now we have to dispense with the call of the House. Are there any objections to a call of the House? There's an objection. All those in favor of a call of the House signify by raising your hand. Motion fails. Now we're on the motion to rise out of the Committee of the Whole, suspend discussions on the budget bill in order to, or with the sole purpose of voting on the override of Bill 11, correct? All right. There's been an objection to that motion. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand. Correct. I stand corrected. Thank you. Roll call.
Senator Atta. Senator Atta, aye. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, aye. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Duenas. Senator Duenas, aye. Senator Moylan. Senator Moylan, aye. Vice Speaker Munya-Barnes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to excuse members not present.
There's a motion to excuse members not present. Any objections? No objections.
Vice Speaker Munya-Barnes excused. Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, pass. Senator Rangel. Senator Rangel, nay. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, excused. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, nay. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye. Senator Terlahi. Senator Terlahi, nay. Speaker Terlahi. Speaker Terlahi, aye. Senator Torres. Senator Torres, nay. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, nay.
Motion carries with 8 aye votes, 5 nay votes, and 2 excused. Motion carries.
We are back on second reading. We are back in motions pursuant to a motion. And we are here on motions. I will now recognize Senator Chris Duenas.
Madam Speaker, at this time, I move to place vetoed Bill 1136 in the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss the merits of moving this override.
Please proceed.
Sidusmasi, Madam Chair. I don't want to score political points. I want to work with the governor. I understand we are in the budget process, so I will make this statement very short. Anybody else can be heard, and then we'll vote. Of course, that's the deliberative process. Madam Speaker, since Friday at 3 o'clock, our community has been deeply divided by the recent decision of our dear governor to issue an executive order mandating individuals to be fully vaccinated to participate and be patrons in our business community, to work in our business community, and this has been nothing less than caustic and divisive. Madam Speaker, none other than the two individuals who consistently work with our governor, namely the Physicians Advisory Group and the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association, have both come out publicly and said they were completely surprised and taken aback by the governor's recent decision. One of the key and poignant discussions from the Physician Advisory Group chairman was that not only should this executive order be rescinded, but that prior executive orders need to be reviewed as well. Madam Speaker, from the day that I and my co-sponsor, Senator Ada and Senator Moylan, introduced Bill 11, it was for the sole purpose of allowing the people's voice to be heard. This is the people's house. All of us continue to make that statement. And the people need to come down and be heard, most especially now that many in this community believe that their rights are being trampled. I listened to Frank the Crank this morning, Madam Speaker, in a media outlet. He is not an individual who's ever come out and made bold political statements like this. But what he said is what the governor has done is effectively shut his livelihood down, his ability to provide for his family. He's a small businessman who takes care of people's fitness and try to help our community to stay away from the scourges of COVID. He, like myself, are COVID survivors. I have been told by my doctor not to take this vaccine at this point because I have better antibodies and that I have some allergy issues. Am I going to be forced now not to be able to go places, not to be able to participate? This weekend, Madam Speaker, as I attended the fishing derby, so many people told me that they're in the same boat. They are not refusing to get vaccines. Some of them have been told by their medical physician, their doctors, their medical advisors not to, and others believe that they have a stronger immunity based on their ability to fight this virus because they survived it. Madam Speaker, there are many reasons. There are religious reasons. There are issues pertaining to individuals who have to make decisions for their children. I mean, we should have at least discussed this. And we would have done that. And we can do that if we override this bill and it becomes law so that we can have discussions by scheduling a public hearing next week and make sure that these decisions are being made in a non-arbitrary and capricious manner, that they're being made in good faith with good evidence that doesn't divide our community. Madam Speaker, I have to say that I've had so many calls by individuals that are so appalled, and I'm going to mention this. I'm not going to mention his name. But there's a staff member of one of the offices of this legislature that continually bashes not only the Republican Party of Guam, but former Governor Eddie Calvo and Speaker Mpinko and all the other visionaries who were the authors of this emergency powers. But 20 years ago, Madam Speaker, they couldn't see that COVID was going to come to Guam. They didn't realize what the governor might be capable of. Last week, the governor of Kentucky, many states are now, Supreme Courts are starting to overrule governors who have overstepped their bounds on emergency powers. It was taken from the lower court to the Supreme Court in Kentucky, and the decision was the governor has overstepped his powers. And their ability to curb the emergency powers of their governor, like Michigan and like some other states, are getting into this issue now, has been supported by their state Supreme Court. Madam Speaker, in closing, I don't want to fight with the governor, but I will fight for people's right to be heard, and they shouldn't have, although I enjoy it, because I like to do it myself, they shouldn't have to get on the radio, be interviewed by TV stations, stand on the side of the road for their voice to be heard, because they know if their voice is heard here, where we make decisions, more than likely, they'll have a remedy, as we are the policy makers for this island, for better or for worse. The governor of Guam is the executor of policies, the chief executive. We are the policymakers. I pray that my friends and colleagues here will see the wisdom in this proposal, which only asks that people's voice to be heard. It does not shut down a public emergency, although we have that power. Si Zeus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Zeus Masi. We are now on the debate and discussion portion of the motion to act on the vetoed bill or item notwithstanding the objections of Imagahagan Guahan. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Senator Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand and rise in full support of the override of veto of Bill 11-36. Madam Speaker, as was mentioned earlier, there was an executive order that was released at about 3 o'clock on Friday, followed by a press release and a press conference where it was stated that the decision, while it was heavy to make, was made under heavy consultation and under the advice of several groups, namely the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association and the Physicians Advisory Group. Only to find out about an hour later that the Guam Hotel Restaurant Association, and then in this morning's paper from the Physicians Advisory Group, that the executive order that was released or that was put out was in contravention to any of the suggestions that they had provided, and that they were not in support of, hang on, Madam Speaker. And that they were not in support of the executive order. Over the weekend, I found that the governor has what is called a youth advisory group that she had convened for members, the youth members of our population, to be able to provide suggestions, recommendations, input into topics of the day. And in this one, it was COVID. And they weren't even advised. Yet, the executive order that we have before us now, or that we're mandated with now, include that population 12 and above. They weren't invited. We have never been invited. And I'm talking about 36 Guam Legislature. Although we had been invited to discuss how we can probably use the American Rescue Plan, and we bared our soul to them on the understanding, at least to me, that we were going to work in unison for this. Hasn't happened. And then there were other executive orders that have been put out that, have severely restricted not just our movement, but our progress. That I just wonder, where are we getting consultation from? Madam Speaker, I don't think it's the intent of anybody here in this legislature, at least for me too, that should this bill pass, we go to the governor and says, your emergency declaration is no longer in effect. No, that's not what it says. That says that if you want to continue with an emergency declaration, that you have to have a conversation with us. With the House, that all of us in here have in one time or another said this is the House of the people. This is where the people's voices will be heard. This is where the people's voices will be considered. This is where the people's voices will be represented. Now is our opportunity to walk the walk. Now's our opportunity to put action to voice. Now's our opportunity to fulfill what we have promised. This is our opportunity. And you know what? This is not just for those that can vote for us. This is our opportunity to represent everybody. To include that 12-year-old who on Saturday was told because he was not vaccinated, or he couldn't get vaccinated, quite honestly, that he can no longer play baseball. Or that 14-year-old girl who was told that she can no longer dance. Or that businessman who has to now make a decision. Does he force his employees to get vaccinated just so that he can keep his doors open? To that grandmother who wants to probably spend her last birthday with her kids and her grandkids at her favorite restaurant. They can no longer go. And for what? I understand loyalties and I understand convictions and everything, but guys, my colleagues, there are sometimes we have to make decisions in this house that we don't personally like, but we've got to stand for something. But we've got to listen to our constituents. Have we heard them enough already? And if you're saying that we're going to take away her powers, this emergency's been going on for the last 14, 15 months. if she doesn't listen to her physician advisory group anymore, if she doesn't listen to her economic group anymore, she doesn't listen to her youth advisory group anymore, when are we, as that second branch of government, that balance, that check on the balance of power, going to step up and do our job? I stand here to say, Madam Speaker, that I want to do my job. I stand here and I ask my colleagues. I can understand why you probably didn't want to do this in January or February. But think about what just happened over the last 72 hours. And if we don't do anything about it now, what's going to happen later on? So please, my colleagues, let's consider what we want to do. This is not saying that we want all efforts to stop to be able to deal with this pandemic. This is not that we're going to say that whatever the governor would like to do, that we're going to say no. This is just doing what our people, our community, have been asking for. To represent their voices in decisions that need to be made. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I stand in support of the override of Veto Bill 11-36.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the override of Bill 11. I certainly thank my colleague and our minority leader, Senator Chris Duenas, for moving on this morning, because while we certainly have an important matter of the budget bill before us, what has transpired since the beginning of this pandemic, and certainly what has been even highlighted further in our community this past weekend with the most recent executive order that the governor has brought upon our people. This is definitely a moment that we need to stand and be counted and have the voices of our people heard. We all recognize the seriousness of this pandemic. We've had to see members of our community, of our family, who have suffered from it. Fortunate for those that have survived it. And we also know individuals that have passed away as a result of it. There's nobody here who wants to see anyone else suffer from this pandemic, because it's a very challenging time in our community. But it's during the times of challenge, Madam Speaker, that we need to come together and collectively decide, how do we make the best decision for our community? You know, some people have the idea that power comes from the top and then it filters down. And then you have many who believe the power comes from the bottom and filters up. We live in a representative democracy, which to me means our power comes from the people. And I have heard a lot of people this weekend, people that don't even get involved in politics, just good law-abiding citizens taking care of their families, doing their work. There's never anybody that's going to get in trouble, who are raising a red flag of concern, of feeling that their decisions to make decisions for themselves and their families, and some of them for their business owners who do not want to be in a situation of having to force employees to be vaccinated, or forcing their family or their children to have to be vaccinated in order to participate in society here on Guam. You know, we're being asked to walk around with our vaccine cards, and gosh, I have to make sure I have it here on my phone, make sure my family members have it. You know, are we going to walk around with our scarlet letter and segregate our people? That's what's most disturbing. We were told we need to come together to fight this virus and wear these masks and distance and sanitize and be responsible. And our people have done that. We were able to do that. We were able to bring the numbers down doing that and making that sacrifice for the better interest of our community. And now, within such a short time, we have a mandate coming down that from Friday to Monday, we're going to institute all these additional restrictions, and unless you have evidence of being vaccinated, you're going to be segregated in our society, in our community on Guam. You're going to be outcasted from the basic needs of life and movement and freedom. And we need to strike a balance with that, because gosh, I chose to be vaccinated. But I'm not discriminating against anyone for whatever their decision to choose not to. Some of these people have suffered through horrendous health issues. Many of them have suffered through cancer and survived it. But for whatever reason, they're making the choice not to, or they're waiting to see how this vaccine is going to further develop. Is it safe to take? Is it still experimental? I mean, earlier this year, we're told we need to take the vaccine. Now we're being told, oh, you need to take a booster. Now we're being told, even if you have the vaccine, there's no guarantee that you're not going to get COVID or that you're not going to pass it on to someone else. So while all these realities are in play, how do we treat our own family? How do we treat our own people in our community that we live in? Do we blacklist them from our community because, oh, you're not vaccinated? I think that's wrong. That's very wrong. And especially to not have our people heard, to subjugate them. Who are we to do that? Who are we to do that? And to do it without any engagement of our people. Early on, we heard from the Physicians Advisory Group that doesn't keep any formal minutes, so we don't publicly know what's being discussed. But overall, people kind of came to a sense of, well, you know, we'll listen to what they have to say. They're the experts. They're the physicians. They will know best how to battle this issue. And then now we're hearing from the chairman that they didn't advise or recommend this. That this extreme measure will have the opposite effect of maybe forcing people instead of who were considering to take this vaccine to say, no, I'm not going to do it now. Who are you to force me to do it? You know, as our previous two speakers have mentioned, yes, we may have our political alignments and our political loyalties that we play, because some people play here to benefit themselves and their families. But you know, my colleagues, I've been at this game a long time, and I will tell you, this is a pivotal moment today. This is going to be a pivotal moment in this upcoming election if we want to get political and look at the election next year. You know, when you see engaged public response to issues and concerns, this has become what was a concern before on Friday, after Friday afternoon, really. Boy, if you want to gaslight this issue got gaslighted big time. Especially for our people to feel in their own island that they are being forced, they are being mandated without their engagement, without their consensus, without their voice being heard on this issue. We are affecting families, the lives of families, we're affecting businesses, we're affecting the ability of people in this community to work and make a living and take care of themselves, and all without their engagement. Because what? We're going to bow to the power of this governor or any governor to mandate these decisions without the inclusion of the people's ideas and thoughts and concerns being brought to the table? Because we are seeing what is happening at Adelup as power from the top down. We're going to tell our people what they can and cannot do. We're going to force people to be marked and segregated in this community. It's not right, Madam Speaker. It's not democratic and it's not just. Once we go down this road, and we've seen in our history what happens, and I'm just not going to stand on the sidelines. Politics, be the heck with that. That's not important right now. When our basic rights as a people to live and make decisions that are in our best interest and have input in that is silenced because we are mandated by executive order. And for us, for you colleagues, for any of us to sit here in this legislature to run and say, my dear people of Guam, Maniluhuds and Maninahu Tautau Guam, that we're running to represent their interests, but when the time comes and they give us a seat to sit in, we sit and we say nothing. And we don't question the abuse of authority on our people. Gosh, if we're going to do that, what business do we have being in this session hall representing the people of Guam? When the time comes to stand up and be counted, oh no, we're not going to say or do anything because of our allegiance and our alliances, and our special interest is more important than making sure the people have a voice. And by all means, I support my dear colleague, Senator Chris. And everyone in here is willing to stand up because, my dear colleagues, this is the moment. Are you standing up for the people of Guam? Your decision on this particular bill is going to show, are you standing up for the people of Guam? You know, a number of years ago, Madam Speaker, you recall you were legal counsel. A resolution was put forth before the legislature to recall the governor of Guam. And there was a lot of debate and a lot of division. My goodness, when the day came for the vote, talk about the controversy. We had people that were protesting in front of the legislature. We had security in the whole not this, but the other building. In and out of the building, we had to have the police and the marshals at the court, because it was that much an issue that caused that much disagreement and concern in the community. And the resolution didn't pass to recall the governor at the time because of the disappointment and dissension the public had about the decisions that were being made by our chief executive. And you know what happened in that election, Madam Speaker? I think we all know, those of us that were there, because we advised our colleagues that this was a time to be counted, that the people were unhappy, and we needed to listen to the people. But our colleagues chose not to. You know, it's one of those moments you're in the canoe and you're thinking, who's getting thrown out of the canoe? And we thought they were thinking they were throwing us out of the canoe. What ended up happening in that election, Madam Speaker? Only one colleague that voted against that resolution survived. That was the outcome. That was the outcome of that pivotal moment, because the people were very unhappy. And they made their decisions known when they went to go vote. So my colleagues, this is one of those moments, because this is wrong. What is happening now to impose these mandates to this degree, to segregate our people, is wrong. Even though we know we need to take protective measures, our people have been doing this all these many months. But to start marking our people, to start dividing our people at a time when we need to come together is wrong. And if you want to be a member of this legislature to speak up on behalf of the people, then by all means speak up, because there's no way to justify this other than if you do not vote to support this and support the people of Guam, then you're supporting the administration. You're supporting the administration continuing to make these arbitrary decisions on behalf of our people without their engagement. This is not how this government was set up. And I sure as heck, when I ran for this term, didn't run just to sit in this legislature to have a title. Been there, done that. I ran, as some of my other colleagues did who got elected in this last election, to put check and balance, to ensure that we have collective engagement in policy decisions that are being made, and to not roll over for anyone. That's not why we're here, my dear colleagues. But this is unacceptable. To continue on this track of where we are going is not going to get the desired outcome of putting this virus in check, which is really what our collective issues and efforts in leadership should be focused on. Not having to fight each other, not having to have mandates imposed on our community that are going to hurt our community further. If there's anything we do this year that is going to be of consequence, I have to tell you, is ensuring that our community is heard. And the intent of this bill was originally to grant that, so that we don't have a single individual arbitrarily deciding on their own the tremendous impacts and making decisions that are going to have such broad consequences overall. We have to have something more than just frustration in dealing with this issue and fighting with each other. As I continue to say, Madam Speaker, if we cannot come together during this challenging time of crisis, when can we ever come together? That maybe the people of Guam just need to clean the slate because we're not doing a good job at it. Our people deserve better. They deserve better from us. And we need to take into consideration all the impacts and decisions that are being made. And we need to hear from the people that are suffering most from it. But we don't feel it as much because we still get our paychecks. We get reports from the administrative representatives, how great, it's all good. Just pass the budget, and by the way, increase the BPT, it's all good. I don't see that in the real world. I don't see that in the people that I encounter. I don't see that in the messages and the emails that are coming my way. I'm sure colleagues are seeing and hearing the same thing. Let's not turn a blind eye, as some of us are so good at doing, on this issue. Because this is really a day and it's a time to be counted. And I stand up and support the override of Bill number 11. Because I really think it's very important to ensure that democracy still reigns in our island and that our people have a say in how they want to be governed. With that, Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to act on the vetoed bill, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahagan Guahan, is there anyone else who would like to be recognized? Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad we're discussing the override of this bill in light of the last executive order that supposedly was supposed to unify but only divided us. The statement that unvaccinated are a pandemic, I disagree with. The unvaccinated are not a pandemic. I encourage our community to get vaccinations. I got my vaccination for a whole bunch of reasons. But I also must respect the decision of those who elect not to do so. Our governor is our leader and must unify us and not divide us. Divide us, the island, through her leadership is just not right. And most importantly, she must listen to her constituency. The governor's latest executive order enhances segregation, and she continues to display the opinions of others just don't matter. Madam Speaker, the virus exists. The Delta virus is here. I recognize that. We can see with the increase in positive cases, but we shouldn't segregate. We can do things like, of course, scaling back on certain restrictions. That's really important. But not something as extensive as what we're seeing in this executive order. What we didn't see is any actions to address the increase in positive cases arising in our schools. And the governor's message is inconsistent. You can have an unvaccinated adult not allowed to eat at a restaurant, but an unvaccinated 14-year-old is allowed to eat in the high school cafeteria. Where is the communication? I wish prior to making this executive order, there was extensive discussion, but there wasn't. The governor must open communication lines. We can't say we are all in this together when you don't get the input of the people's house. It's the same kind of attitude we see with the American Rescue Plan and the budget. We're making amendments, of course. We can see numerous of our amendments just waiting for that budget. Now the governor is implying fines, citations, and even vaccination mandates. We're making legislation so we can get people's input on this, but we're not working together. We're not communicating with the governor. The governor is not communicating with us. I'm glad we're discussing this override. It's important. The measure requires this administration, this governor, to be transparent And the legislation proposes that the legislature be the approving body of any extension of public health emergency. This goes back to the importance of public input, and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing how we need to address this problem. Dividing the community is not how we address the problem. Referring to unvaccinated residents as the pandemic is not how we address the problem. Transparency, listening to the community, and working cohesively is the only way we're going to get out of this pandemic together. I urge my colleagues to vote on the override. Let's work together for the people's house. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to act on vetoed Bill 11, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahagan Guahan, is there, Senator Ada, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise in full support of the override of the governor's veto of Bill 11. You know, Madam Speaker, never in my life did I ever think that I'd be living through a time when our island would be going through a pandemic, just as the whole world going through a pandemic. And all this time I thought that we would be working together to come out of this pandemic and come out as an island as a whole. And at times it seemed that way. But many times it wasn't. This legislative body has extended so many olive branches to the administration that they probably have an olive tree growing down there now. And I'm not sure how is it that any one of us in this legislative body can sit and accept what is going on with the administration not talking to this body, this co-equal branch of government, in working for the best of our people. When you see what has been going on these past 3 days, I have so many emails in my inbox from people who are just disheartened by this last executive order. Bill 11 is not to take away the governor's emergency powers, but Bill 11 is just to have her come to talk with us. Because in the end, not one person makes a decision. We all have that right to make a decision so that we can do what's best for our island and our people. Because everything that goes down to the administration from this body, that's 15 senators representing the people. We may not all agree on a bill. We may vote yes and no. But this is one issue that we should all come together. Put away the partisan politics. Let's come together. Let's not wait till the day when this pandemic of the unvaccinated, when you hear a knock at your door, and it's the police or Homeland Security going by the executive orders of the governor of Guam to arrest any individual who has not been vaccinated. We have many divisions going on in our community. Let's not be a part of that division. Let's be a part of unity. Well, I ask my colleagues, please, please rise and support Bill 11's override. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any other senator who would like to be recognized on the motion? Senator Taitigui, you are recognized.
Sijus Mase, Madam Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues. My colleagues said so much, I'm not going to make this very long. I think they spoke very well about the intent of the override on this veto bill. I stand in full support of this override, Madam Speaker. The ability to choose what you decide to do with your own body is a right that's been given to us. It's what makes America great, being able to have that freedom of choice. And now we're taking that away. It's very simple. Every day people make up their own minds on what they want to eat, where they want to live. These are the choices that we all are given as being American. Now we're going to start with something like this. It's the beginning. And it's very, very scary for one person to decide on how we move forward. And that's what's more alarming is the fact that the advisors are not even around anymore because she's not even listening to them. So it is basically one person. Over the weekend, I had a chance to speak to my son, who's a paramedic in Arizona. And I asked him, how are things over there? He said, yep, he's taking a lot of people to the hospital with COVID. And I said, well, are the hospitals overwhelmed? There's no beds available. He said, well, Mom, what's happening is that they're forcing everyone at the hospital to take the vaccine, everyone. And some of these nurses don't want to take it. So they're leaving the hospital. So in other words, Mom, there are beds, but there's not enough staff to staff those beds because nurses are leaving because they're being forced to take the vaccine. A week ago, I heard that some teachers are now deciding not to work anymore. They're retiring early or just quitting because now they're forced to take the vaccine. Teachers, nurses. Madam Speaker, I know that the majority of this island is vaccinated. But it's important that we stand up for those who are not and give them their right to choose. So I ask this body to please think of that. How many other people who are critical to the needs of this island are going to leave because they'll be forced to take the vaccine? And then what will we do? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion, is there any senator who would like to be recognized on the motion? Senator Ridgell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the author of Bill 11, if he would so yield.
State your question.
So Bill 11 says, notwithstanding any other provision of this chapter, the declaration of a state of public health emergency shall be terminated automatically after 90 days unless renewed by a resolution of the Legislature in Guam. Does that mean that if this bill is overridden, would that end the public health emergency declaration now?
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Madam Chair, I do not believe so.
Are you yielding to the question?
I am yielding to the question.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in the formulation of the bill, I do not believe so. I believe the way that we drafted the bill and the understanding is that the 90 days is to give the governor, as one of my good colleagues said, a battle rhythm to be able to adjust to whatever emergency emerges. After the 90 days, the way I believe this works, Madam Speaker, or contained within that 90 days, is the provision in the law subsequently which states that the governor would come down to the legislature, we would schedule a public hearing, we would have a hearing on the issue of continuing the public health emergency, and then the legislature will decide by resolution to either affirm or terminate the emergency.
Senator Ridgell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the answer is no, it doesn't end the public health emergency today. It would be 90 days. I have a follow-up question if the author would so yield.
Please state your question.
When would the 90 days count from? Would that count from the last public health declaration, emergency declaration, which I believe was signed July? So when do we count the 90 days before the automatic termination of the public health emergency?
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
I do yield, Madam Speaker. I believe at this point in time, Madam Speaker, we are currently in the current emergency. However, this bill was introduced during the time period at which the governor continues to renew the public health emergency. So my belief is anything prior to the current emergency is such that the emergency continues. But if this bill passes into law, then we will have that 30-day marker in terms of the approval or non-approval of the next emergency. Because, Madam Speaker, I don't believe you can retroactively impose the 90 days. A bill goes forward. Now, if we were in a new emergency, yes, I could see the 90 days coming into effect, meaning the first 90 days would be for the governor to do what the governor needs to do. However, no matter what, this legislature has to convene and has to make that decision by resolution. That is how we speak in this body. So no, you cannot retroactively implement the 90 days and automatically terminate the emergency. You would do what the legislation calls for, which is prior to the next declaration of the public health emergency, which I believe we probably have a couple weeks to go. I envision if this bill passes into law, we will call a public hearing duly noticed as per our rules. That would take us into sometime next week. The people's voice will be heard, and then we can make the decision prior to the next declaration of public health emergency, as prescribed, that the governor has to do anyways and has been doing for over 14 months now, which is by executive order to continue and continue and to continue to extend this public health emergency. No, Madam Speaker, we can talk to legal counsel and take a recess, but I do not believe that statute that's constructed can be retroactively implemented unless called for specifically, and that it's prospective, but we are still in the current public health emergency. So it would be the 30 days under which we would consider whether or not to approve or disapprove the emergency declaration.
Senator Ridgell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the author believes it would be 30 days from the passage of the bill that it would terminate the Could you clarify, please? Would it be 30 days from the passage of the bill that would automatically terminate the public health emergency?
That is my understanding. It would be 30 days from the passage of the bill because we are in the current emergency and you cannot retroactively implement the 90 days. Madam Speaker, at this time, because this is technical and legal in nature, I request a recess so that the mover of the questions can also be confirmed by Legislative Council the interpretation of the law. Si Diyos masi.
I would also like to hear from legal the interpretation, Madam Speaker.
All right, we'll take a 1-minute recess. We're back from recess. Senator Rangel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'd just like to say for the record, we spoke to legal counsel, and legal counsel's interpretation is that because after it talks about 90 days, it says any such renewal also shall be terminated automatically after 30 days unless renewed by a resolution of the legislature. So the interpretation then is that even if this bill was overridden today, this current public health emergency would have to run out first, then the governor would have to renew it, and then 30 days would count. So we're talking 30 days or more, 30 days minimum, probably 40 days, 45, something around there. So with that, Madam Speaker, I must say that I don't see how this bill addresses the current concerns about the vaccination mandate. It's going to be 30 days before that, 45 days before that concern's even addressed. It doesn't terminate the governor's public health emergency currently, and most of the debate we're hearing about today is about this vaccination mandate. I think most of the debate is honestly not pertinent to the bill at all, should be out of order. I should have raised that objection earlier. The word vaccinate is not even in the bill. Not once. Nothing about the governor's executive order, nothing about the vaccination mandate, but that seems to be what everyone's arguing about here today. That's not what the bill does. The bill simply doesn't do that. I understand there are other bills out there that address it, but not this one. This one says automatically terminate public health emergencies. That's what this bill says. What this bill does is it strips executive powers from the ability to declare public health emergencies. That's a power that was given to the executive branch by design, by the nature and the function of the three branches of government. The executive branch has to execute functions. That often means that they have to execute and make decisions quickly and swiftly. The executive branch is not a deliberative body. The legislature is a deliberative body. What that means is that the legislature, and as we all see and obviously know, can and often does take its time while it deliberates over policies. That's why the government was structured in this way, to allow certain executive powers so that the executive branch, the chief executive, can move swiftly and address emergencies swiftly. Because in the time of an emergency, we don't have time to debate on whether or not we should call 911. When there's an emergency, you call 911. You declare an emergency. You don't have time to bring people in and say, sir, do you think we should call 911? Sir, ma'am, do you think we should call 911? Do you think this is an emergency? Yes or no? I just want to get a feel of the room. How many here, by raise of hand, how many here think we should call 911? How many here think this is an emergency? I see one hand raised. 2 hands. We don't have time to debate these things. That's why it's an executive branch function. Because legislative movements take time. And everyone knows that. In fact, that's one of the things we get beat up about all the time, is that the legislature takes forever to get things done. But that's the nature of this branch. That's the nature of this body. It's deliberative in nature, which means we argue back and forth over things. We hear people out. We don't have time to declare emergencies or to decide whether or not something's an emergency. That's what the executive branch does and should do. And that's what executive branches around the world do. Some with more totalitarian authority than others. We also have a means. There is a check and balance already. It's in the law. The check and balance is if we ever think that the governor has overstepped her boundaries, has, through her declaration of public health emergency, we can terminate it at any time. That's the check and balance. The legislature can then meet and deliberate for as long as we take to deliberate, while the executive branch is executing what it needs to do in a state of emergency. We can debate on whether or not we want to rescind that state of emergency. That's not even what this bill does. Again, this bill makes it automatic. We have the power already. We can do it already. So for me, the debate about vaccinations, about checks and balances, is not even pertinent to this bill. And that's why I voted against the bill in the first place. And that's why I will vote against its override again, because it doesn't address the problems that the movers of the bill are making it sound like it addresses. It simply doesn't. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion, is there any other senator who would like to be recognized? On the motion, if there's no one else, then the mover of the motion can close. Senator Duenas.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. I never envisioned when I would use this term on the floor, but my good colleagues' retiring remarks were what they call a red herring. Madam Speaker, as we discussed in the recess, if this bill is overridden today, the governor will have up to 45 days to make a decision on the renewal of a public health emergency after consultation with the legislature. This is not 911. Or as one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, 911, has as their code. This is a deliberative process. As I explained, Madam Speaker, if the governor believes, and I said this during our recess, that she needs additional time, she could terminate the public health emergency and start another one. In any public health emergency, the governor has 90 days to make clear-eyed decisions on the executive order. In fact, we've done a favor for the governor, because this 90 days in the beginning of an emergency doesn't call for the current 30 days of the renewal. That's the truth. It's not 911. And Madam Speaker, to go back once again to Dr. Wen and the Physicians Advisory Group says we're pulling out our hair because we take time away from our medical practices. We take time away from our seeing patients who are ill, to try to make decisions for Guam. I'm sure those meetings probably last a couple of hours, Madam Speaker. And GHRA and whoever else gets the privilege of sitting at the table downtown. And decisions are made. And every single time, Madam Speaker, it's not 911 to give us information. Every single time the governor has renewed the public health emergency, it's been on a Friday, on the eve of the next 30 days. Nobody wants to sit here and deliberate over whether or not we're going to call 911 with a victim who's suffering maybe a terminal injury or illness. That is a complete misrepresentation of what even the current law calls for. I have more belief in every single member of this body to make deliberative action and stop everything that they're doing to do it right. Madam Speaker, sometimes we come into session, we've heard a bill only 5 days before session. We've met all the requirements to hear a bill. And bills that have been heard months and months ago don't even get on the agenda. But that bill is so important that it gets put on the agenda, whammo, passed. We can't work with alacrity? I don't think so, Madam Speaker. I've seen a lot of alacrity in this body on serious matters. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it. There is no way, the way that this bill is written, that it says that we are taking away the governor's ability to do anything. But I'll tell you something, Madam Speaker. There are a lot of businesses under this continuous public health emergency that see a lot of alacrity in procurement. Whether it be golf carts, insert procurement here. That is an insult to our people. Yes, golf carts. Currently under protest. In the media, in the news. Not delivered by me. Delivered by a company that believed the rules were changed in the middle of the game under an emergency. Procurement, for God's sake. The people are not blind. In closing, Madam Speaker, even if we make a decision, and I take that as a challenge more than likely, we have the resolution in our hand. Maybe my colleague will join me. But is that really what we want to do? Do we want to further divide our people because we want to say, that's it, we're done with you? Here's your resolution. This emergency is over. Only more than likely for the new declaration the next day? What more says, I don't want to work with you, than staring somebody down and say, I've had enough of you, here's your resolution, your emergency is over? That's wrong. That's not the way to do things. Yes, the provision is there, and maybe it's time. But I want to give this one last shot. No red herrings, no empty arguments, straight up reading of the law. If this passed today, we'll be debating this for at least 45 days. We would public notice a public hearing as per our rules for next week. It will be on the eve of the governor's requirement to do another public health emergency. And we will have weeks to make a decision, Madam Speaker, weeks before the next public health emergency declaration is required. And then we can make that decision. That's the truth. Because, Madam Speaker, even if we pass the resolution to shut down this emergency, I bet you $1 to donuts in order to deliberate and get a decision like that on this floor, you better bring it. Because there will be a lot of uncertainty out there. Our people will be more confused by that than anything else. Wait a minute. What are you doing? It's just you guys? We all want to be heard. Maybe what we want is just a modification. Can you see us? Can you hear us? 90 days? 45 days? And that's 911? No, Madam Speaker. I pray my colleagues join me in the override of this bill 1136, Jesus Masi.
On the motion to act on vetoed Bill 11, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahog and Guahan, by placing the bill into the voting file. All in favor, please raise your hand. Clerk, please take roll call on this motion. On the vote on this motion, we will take roll call.
Senator Atta. Senator Atta, aye. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, aye. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Duenas. Senator Duenas, aye. Senator Moylan. Senator Moylan, aye. Vice Speaker Munya Barnes.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion that we excuse all members not present for today.
On the motion to excuse all members not present, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Please proceed.
Vice Speaker Munya Barnes excused. Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, aye. Senator Rangel. Senator Rangel, nay. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine excused. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, nay. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye. Senator Terlahi. Senator Terlahi, nay. Speaker Terlahi. Speaker Terlahi, aye. Senator Torres. Senator Torres, nay.
The vote on the motion is 9 yeas and 4 nays and 2 excused. The motion passes. That means that the bill is now placed into, the vetoed bill is placed into the voting file. Are there any other motions? We are currently in motion. If not, we will return to our second reading in our committee of the whole. No, we are proceeding into second reading, Committee of the Whole, and Bill 55-36, our budget. We're back in session. Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, on the importance of this issue, and I do not want to belabor the point going forward, I request that we vote at this time.
Notwithstanding the rules.
Notwithstanding the House rules, Madam Speaker, there is no engrossment required. There's nothing else required except to vote on this bill that's already been debated and vetoed and now debated for the override. Notwithstanding the rules, I move that we vote.
On the motion, notwithstanding the rules, to go to the voting file, is there any objection? There's been an objection. All in favor of notwithstanding the rules, proceeding to the voting file? All in favor, please raise your hand. There's an objection. There's only been 2 calls for a roll call. 3 calls for a roll call. We will proceed with a roll call on this vote, and this is a motion to proceed, notwithstanding the rules, to the voting file immediately. Clerk, please call the roll call on this motion.
Senator Atta. Senator Atta, aye. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, aye. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Dueñas. Senator Dueñas, aye. Senator Moylan. Senator Moylan, aye. Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to excuse members not present.
On the motion to excuse members not present, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes excused. Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, aye. Senator Rogel. Senator Rogel, aye. Senator San Agustin. Senator San Agustin excused. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, aye. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye. Senator Terlahi. Senator Terlahi, aye. Speaker Terlahi. Speaker Terlahi, aye. Senator Torres. Senator Torres, nay.
On the motion, notwithstanding the rules, to proceed to the voting file, there are 12 yeas, 1 nay, and 2 absent. We will proceed to the voting file. Colleagues, we are in the voting file. Item 18, consideration of the daily file, specifically the voting file. The question is, notwithstanding the objections of Himagahaga and Guahan, shall vetoed bill number 11-36 COR be overridden? Roll call.
Senator Atta. Senator Atta, aye. Senator Blas. Senator Blas, aye. Senator Brown. Senator Brown, aye. Senator Dueñas. Senator Dueñas, aye. Senator Moylan. Senator Moylan, aye. Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes.
Madam Speaker, I make a motion to excuse members not present.
On the motion to excuse members not present, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes excused. Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, nay. Senator Rogel. Senator Rogel, nay. Senator San Agustin. Senator San Agustin excused. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, nay. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye. Senator Terlahi. Senator Terlahi, nay. Speaker Terlahi. Speaker Terlahi, aye. Senator Torres. Senator Torres, nay.
vetoed bill, the override of vetoed bill number 11-36 COR received 8 ayes, 5 nays, and 2 excused. Vetoed bill number 11-36 COR failed override. We're now back in the second reading, Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, can I just have 30-second recess real quick?
Motion for a recess. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're in recess for 1 minute.
All right, the committee of the whole will recess and reconvene at 2 p.m.